Wonderful to see you all. Nice to see so many known old faces, yeah. And I can see not entirely clear who is here because my vision is kind of getting a bit blurry in the distance. But I do recognize some of you, and that's wonderful to be back in Victoria, in Melbourne, and seeing Newbury Monastery, the SOS retreat centre, and everything. It's going really well, isn't it? Everything coming together, all the various aspects that you kind of expect of a good Buddhist society, you're kind of finding here now. And that's marvelous. And it's been growing very fast. I was just reflecting the other day with Ajahn that it took in Perth, it took us about at least twice as long to get to where you are now already here with, since the establishment of Newbury specifically. So going really well, going very fast. So well done, everyone. Keep up the good work, as they say. Carry on. Do the right thing. So anyways, I'm going to talk a little bit today about the Mahamangala Sutta, because we just had a 9-day retreat, or 9 or whatever it was, on that particular sutta. We went into great detail, so I thought I would give you an executive summary today here. So see what happens. Obviously, I won't be able to go into great detail, but it is a beautiful sutta with a lot of very important advice on how to live the spiritual life. So I thought that might be useful. Do you all know about the Mahamangala Sutta? No, don't know about myself? Okay, you're good that you're here then at the right times. Now you're going to know about it. So this is one of the suttas that is most beloved in the Pali tradition. We just chanted the Metta Sutta. The Metta Sutta is another of these very kind of core suttas. A sutta is a discourse of the Buddha, of course. So Metta Sutta, Mahamangala Sutta, and sometimes also the Ratana Sutta. Sometimes in English called the 3 sort of cardinal, important, significant suttas of the Pali canon. And the reason for that is, there are many reasons for that, but one is that it brings together so many of the beautiful aspects of the Buddhist path in one place, bringing it all together, easy to understand. And also, it is geared a little bit more towards lay people than it is towards monastics. There isn't any distinction necessarily between monastics and lay people, but this focuses on things like having a vocation, for example, which obviously refers more to lay people than to monastics. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's so popular, because it brings in all of these things. And so it's useful to contemplate these suttas. What is the Buddha really talking about here? Because these things only become true, they only become useful once you start to contemplate what is going on, once you start to see the significance of the various aspects that the sutta talks about. So it's worthwhile spending a bit of time, reflecting on every word, maybe how does it apply to my life, what can I do to ensure that this factor is fulfilled, and how can I advance my own spiritual practice in this particular way. So Mahamangala, the word Mahamangala means like a blessing. So this is the kind of the Great Blessings Sutta. And you may wonder, why is the Buddha talking about blessings? Another word for that is like fortune, a bit like good luck. It's the Good Luck Sutta. Is the Buddha talking about good luck? What is the Buddha on about? Surely good luck, we kind of left that to the superstition, and the Dhamma is not about superstition, it's about a real practice and developing your mind or whatever. So what on earth is going on? And what is going on is that the way that the word Mangala is used in India before the Buddha, before Buddhism comes on the scene, it basically means good luck. And at that time they would do various kinds of ceremonies, they would do chanting, they would do all kinds of things, they would bathe in the river Ganges to wash away their sins. So if you want to do that, you can go down to the Yarra River and see if you can wash away your sins in the Yarra River, see what happens. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you have kind of belief that might work, you can test it out, see what happens. I wouldn't, but please don't do that, because it's kind of, from a Buddhist point of view, it's not really going to work. So that's what it meant in ancient India. And then the Buddha comes along. And one of the things the Buddha always does, he tends to rewrite all the rules. And he takes the vocabulary that existed at the time, the ideas of ancient India, and he redefines it. And so good, the Mangala, the good fortune or the blessings in life, are no longer connected with luck or with just kind of random rituals that we do. They are connected now with how you live your life. Good luck comes from right practice. Good luck comes from thinking in the right way. Good luck comes from practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah? So it's not really luck at all in the ordinary sense. It just means that the happiness, the good things in life emerge out of living in the right way. And so it's a redefinition of what good luck really means. And so this is the first important point. Yeah, so good fortune, good blessings or whatever, it doesn't really mean that in the ordinary sense of the word. It means that we create that in our own life by living in the right way. And so what are all of these blessings? And one of the kind of the remarkable things about the suttas of the Buddha, the way he teaches the Dhamma, is that it is a very structured way of looking at, the spiritual path. The Buddha is this marvelous master of teaching the Dhamma in a very sort of way that has great integrity, great coherence, and is very structured. And one of the things that you may be surprising to you is that the Mahamangala Sutta also has that kind of structure. I don't know if you ever considered that, but if you look at the Mahamangala Sutta carefully, you will see that it begins at the very beginning of the path. The first line of the Mahamangala Sutta is Asevanacha Balanang, Panditanansha Sevana is line number 2, not to associate with fools, but to associate with wise people. And that, of course, is about right view. The reason why we associate with the wise, the reason why we associate with the Buddha specifically. Are you associating with the Buddha? You should, right? That's what the Buddha said. You should associate with the Buddha. In fact, whenever we are contemplating the suttas, we are, in a sense, associating with the Buddha. That's what it means in the present day, to associate with the Buddha. And so whenever we do that, we gain access to right view, because that is the main thing that the Buddha kind of bequeathed to humanity, is right view, access to seeing the world as it actually is, not through delusion, not through wrong ideas, but seeing it as it actually is. And of course, once you see things in the right way, well, then you can take actions that conform to that right view, right way of looking at things. So that's at the very beginning. You can see how that matches with the idea of the Noble Eightfold Path. And then after that comes a large number of factors that have to do basically with morality and virtue in a very broad sense. It comes after that. And it's a little bit higgledy-piggledy in the Mahamangala Sutta, but basically you can see all the factors of right conduct, of morality, etc., are actually found there, plus a few things you wouldn't expect to find. Like having a job without stress. Isn't that interesting? This is 2,500 years ago. People say, it would be nice to have a job without stress, right? We think that in our modern world, we are more stressed out than anyone else. But actually, ancient India, people were already stressed out. This is the nature of humanity. This is life for you. Life is stressful. Life is hard. And so even then, they needed to manage that stress. These days, we may need it even more. But the idea is there. So little things like that, which kind of makes the sutta really special and unique. And then it goes down through all the aspects of morality, and then you come to the idea of the brahmacharya. The brahmacharya is like the living the spiritual life, and it especially concerns the idea of living a celibate life. That's what brahmacharya means. And so that is a way of talking about meditation practice. Because the opposite of not being celibate is meditation. Celibacy and meditation are kind of two sides of the same coin when they go very deep. You can ask questions later on. You're more than welcome to do so. But I'll just talk, otherwise it gets too kind of a bit too broken up, so to speak. And so that also is kind of implied in the Mahamangala Sutta. And then after that, it goes on to the insight into the Four Noble Truths, and basically the experience of Nibbana and these things. So the whole path is there, even though it has kind of a slight slant towards lay life, it still has the whole path. Everything is actually part of this. So it is a beautiful structured thing that the Mahamangala Sutta actually gives us, which is what you find in all the suttas. A very helpful thing to know that when you read the suttas, you can expect that kind of structure. It helps you to understand what the sutta is about, because then you can put things, into that framework of a structure, and it will kind of make it easy to understand how the various elements, how they fit together once you understand that. But let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to the idea of not associating with fools and associating with wise people. This is at the very foundation. This is part of what we call right view in Buddhism, seeing things in accordance with reality. So this is what the Buddha kind of gives to the world. And I would like to point out to you how important this is and how it works with the path. I think the emphasis on right view is often not made enough out of that. Because this is the foundation of everything. I will be going to Sri Lanka soon in a few days' time, and they asked me to give a whole retreat just on right view. So I'm going to talk about right view for 7 days, morning and evening and midday. Right view. Wow! I got so fed up with right view after a while. I kind of had enough. But not really, because right view is very interesting. It is very broad. One way of thinking about all the suttas, the four Nikayas and this, is just one big compilation of right view. That's really what it is. It's the way of thinking about life, thinking about the spiritual path, and about everything. But one of those little things, sometimes you read the suttas, and sometimes things suddenly they stand out to you. Something you haven't really thought about before. And I have thought a lot about the suttas. There's always more in there in those suttas. There's always new things that you discover. And it occurred to me that the gradual training, the gradual training is what shows you how you practice from the moment you gain faith in Buddhism all the way to arahantship. It's a gradual process of purifying the mind and eventually giving rise to insight. But it's a gradual training, so it's like what we have to do. Right? Like what we have to practice. But how does that gradual training begin? We think it is about our own practice, but how does it begin? Probably you can't remember, but I will tell you exactly how it begins. It begins with the arising of a Buddha in the world. So what has that got to do with your training? You may wonder. The rising of the Buddha in the world is just kind of random. Every now and again the Buddha arises in the world. Okay, wonderful, great. Thank you, Buddha, for being here and supporting us. That's marvelous, for teaching out of compassion and these kind of things. But what has that got to do with the gradual training? Well, what it has to do with the gradual training is that it doesn't exist without a Buddha arising in the world. We can only train, we can only practice if a Buddha arises in the world. And so the gradual training is not really just about what we do. It's about all the circumstances, all the conditions around us are also very important for the gradual training even to exist. That is kind of a very interesting viewpoint, because it shows you that so much of the Buddhist practice is not about what we do, but it is about circumstance and conditions. In other words, it's this non-self idea. I don't do the practice always. The practice comes to me. And when the practice comes to me, then, I can start applying myself accordingly. So this is like part of this idea of anatman or anatta. That things it's more like things happen to us. We are not really so much in charge as we like to think. I just had a discussion. We're just driving down from Newbury Monastery, so I'm a bit exhausted. I've just been discussing with someone for an hour and a half in the car before coming here, and I this is going to be too much for me. I thought I'm going to lose all my mindfulness. I'm going to kind of start talking random stuff when I come to the VSV. But usually it usually works out fine. But what we were discussing in the car was the idea of free will. Yeah, he said, in these days in Sri Lanka, all these teachers are talking about, is there free will, is there not free will, or whatever. And this kind of is this idea about anatman, that we rely on circumstances beyond us, even to be able to practice the path. So we are much more, there is much less, I'm not going to get into whether there's free will or not, maybe we will, see what happens, but there is certainly much less of it than we like to think there is. So this is one of those things about the idea of associating with the wise. And this is why the Buddha says it is 100% of the spiritual life. It is everything, not 50%, not 10%, not 5%, but 100%. And that's kind of one of those strange statements. When you hear it the first time, you wonder what it means. Well, this is part of what it means when you read that statement. So this is kind of hanging out with the wise. Now, hanging out with the wise, getting right view, understanding the world in the right way is actually very, very important. And I know that in Buddhism, very often we focus on the idea of mindfulness, and for good reasons. Mindfulness is obviously very important, but in many ways, right view is even more important, because right view is at the foundation of everything. And without right view, even mindfulness itself isn't really meaningful. It becomes meaningful in the context of right view. And so I will give you an example, and I think I may have used this simile when I was here last year, because I talked about, was I here last year? I think so. I believe I was here last year. Very blurry, I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to know sometimes. So I will give you an example of this, how right view is such an important driver in our practice, and to show you how that works. And this is a simile that I somehow came to me. I'm not sure exactly how it came, but sometimes you know what it's like, things just occur in your mind randomly, probably some conditioning from the past that suddenly comes back. And this is the idea of when you come to a busy road. Lots of busy roads here in Melbourne. And when you come to a busy road and you have to cross that road, there is no zebra crossing, there are no lights because you are a little bit out of the kind of main city area, whatever, but you still have to cross. What do? You have two choices when you come to that road. You can look left and right and then cross, or you can just walk straight into the road. That's your choice. So what do you normally do? You look left and right if it's a very busy road? Why is that? Because it's wise, right? You do that. But what is interesting is that almost everyone looks left and right before they cross the road. There's very few people who just walk into it unless you want to commit suicide or something. And we don't recommend that in Buddhism, so please don't do that. And what is so interesting is that regardless of how little mindfulness you have, you come down the street, you have your mobile phone in hand, doing whatever, looking at your mobile phone, walking into the lamppost or whatever, certainly walking into other pedestrians, no idea where you're going. But when you come to that busy road, regardless of how little mindfulness you have, you are going to look left and right. Because why? And the reason is not because you have mindfulness, the reason is because you have right view. The right view that roads are dangerous. So you come there, and so the right view is in fact more powerful than the mindfulness, or rather, the right view informs the mindfulness just in time so that you do look left and right when you come to that road. And that is incredibly useful to remember. And the reason why it is so useful is because very often in our life, we don't have enough mindfulness. In the busyness of your life, and when things are really happening and you kind of too many things are going on, and this happens in lay life, it can happen also in monastic life sometimes. When mindfulness is low, then you're going to make mistakes. Unless you have that right view at the back of your mind to guide you in the right way. And that will allow the mindfulness to arise, even in situations when actually otherwise your mindfulness is really blurred. You're not really fully present, not really quite aware of what you're doing. The other thing which is problematic is that sometimes you may have mindfulness, but you still make bad decisions. Have you noticed that sometimes you're fully mindful, but you think, yeah, I have to tell that person off. Yeah, I've got to be a bit angry now. Anger is the right response in this situation. Yeah, it is required. Anger gives me that energy which makes it possible to sort out the problem or whatever. Sometimes we mindfully make mistakes. And the reason why we mindfully make mistakes is because we haven't got the right view of what is appropriate. Right view is not solid enough. And so we need to imbue the mindfulness with the right view, and then we're going to make better decisions. And so you can see here from these ideas how right view in some ways is more foundational, more basic, and sometimes is without that right view, mindfulness can't really do its job, and mindfulness may even be missing, but right view will make it arise when it is required. This is one way of thinking about the significance of right view, why it is so important to hang out with the noble ones, so we can get that right view, we can understand things in the right way, and then we can make good decisions and practice on the spiritual path accordingly. So another way of thinking about this, is that we want to try to have as much right view as we can when we make decisions. And so how can we do that? How can we allow that right view to rise in the middle of our busy schedule when so many things are happening to us? We're running around. How can we ensure that right view is there with us at all times? And the way to do that, I will give you another simile. I was telling this simile on the retreat when I was there. And this is when I stay in my little kuti. A kuti is like a little hut. So monks, we have little huts in the forest. The best real estate in the world is a little hut in the forest. I really recommend it. There's no neighbors. Just the only neighbors you have are kangaroos and mosquitoes. So that's kind of really handy. Beautiful. The way we live in Bodhinyana Monastery and also the way they live in Newbury Monastery is the best way to live. Also very small hut, 7 square meters. No cleaning. Or a tiny bit of cleaning, 2 minutes of cleaning, occasionally. It's kind of really, really nice. And so this is kind of my entire living space, but I've got a nice walking path on the outside and that sort of thing. It's really an amazing lifestyle. I can really recommend it. Today is a new year. It's a good day to shave off your hair and kind of incline in that direction, just letting you know, just in case you feel, the time has come or whatever. So I live in this little kuti, and I live away kind of out of, I can't see anyone. I can see in the distance, 10 kilometers away, I can see some house because I live really high up. I have this beautiful view from my kuti, $1 million view, they call it usually. And I'm facing facing west. And so I can see the Indian Ocean in the distance. We're in Western Australia in Perth, so I can see the Indian Ocean in the distance. And so when I stand in my kuti, I look west and a little bit north. What is there? Sri Lanka. That's where Sri Lanka is. So I can look out and I think of Sri Lanka. And then I think a little bit further north, India. That's where the Buddha was born. So I'm kind of looking for the Buddha in the distance, in a sense. And that's really, really nice when you have these kind of perceptions in your mind. It kind of lifts you up when you stay in the kuti. So I'm really high up and I have this amazing view, from my kuti. But then because my kuti, my hut is so small, there is no toilet. So that's kind of a bit awkward, right? So because there's no toilet, what we have instead, we have a hole in the ground. So 50 meters kind of behind my kuti, even higher up in the hillside, there's a hole in the ground. And there's a kind of a plank over that hole in the ground. So take away the plank, and then you kind of do what you have to do. But it's really high up. So it's even higher up than the kuti. So the view is even better. So I have the best view in the world from my toilet. Isn't that great? So I'm sitting there watching the view, really happy. Fresh air. There's no. It's just a hole in the ground. There's no building or anything. Just a hole in the ground, right? So very, really nice and fresh and whatever. Anyway. So, but my point is that this is in nature. And so sometimes that little path between my hut and my kuti, it kind of gets overgrown. And that happened recently. I was walking kind of back up to the toilet. It's getting overgrown. And my immediate thought is, I need to cut down this tree. That's kind of my immediate thought because of the growth or the cut down the branch or whatever. And so straight away I think, okay, how can I get this done? I can't do it myself. I better get an anagarika to come over here. I can't tell the anagarika what to do, but I can say to the anagarika, this tree is in the way here. Yeah, so that's kind of the hint. Yeah, it needs to be removed. And if they are a little bit intelligent, they will get the hint. But if they are really dumb anagarika, they haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So you have to have an intelligence test before you can get into the monastery in Perth. Otherwise, we're going to test them on these kind of questions. But then I realize that I am just reacting here. Yeah, I'm reacting to a situation. Nature is overgrown. But do I really need to cut down that tree? Do I need to get rid of that branch? Trees are nice. Yeah, Western Australia is one of the really dry, much drier than Melbourne is. And the trees are dying everywhere. We're getting these summers when it's just drought all along, and the trees are dying off. I want to look after these trees rather than cutting them down. And so I start looking, is there an alternative? And then of course I see that there is a path a little bit to the left or a path a little bit to the right. Or because we have so many dead trees anyway, just pull down one of the dead trees and create a path. Yeah. And then I realize I don't have to bother the anagarika. I don't have to test their intelligence. I can just fix it up myself by waiting a little bit. And this is one of the ways of kind of practicing Dhamma as well. Instead of always reacting to what is happening around us, reacting to the trees that are in the wrong place, reacting to the people who talk to us in unpleasant ways or whatever. Instead of reacting, wait. And when you wait, you can respond rather than reacting. And responding means you have a reflective attitude to what is happening around you. You are careful. You think about what is going on. What you really are doing is you are allowing right view to arise inside of you. Right view is often blocked out by our habits. We're just following in these powerful currents from the past called the habits. These are the defilements of kind of ill will and greed and delusion and these kind of things, or whatever other habits that we have. These are very, very powerful forces. And if we don't stop, if we don't allow the right view and the Dhamma to arise inside of us, we are always going to be running on these habits. And if you allow yourself always to be running on a habit, you're never going to get anywhere on the Buddhist path. And sometimes you may have a bit of mindfulness, but that mindfulness is not enough, again, unless it is guided by the idea of right view. So this is, so stop a little bit in your life. Go a bit slower. Don't react too fast. And especially if the choices that you have to make are moral choices. And very often they are moral choices. We have to decide how to speak to somebody, how to act in a certain situation, how to think. Thinking is also a moral choice. Should I think this way or that way? Okay, I'm getting upset about this person. Is that a good idea? Maybe I shouldn't get upset with this person. Is there another way of reflecting on this? What did the Buddha say about this? What did the Dhamma say? What did Ajahn say about this? So Ajahn has been a monk for a long time. He knows how to reflect in the right kind of way. What is the right way of reflecting on this? And once you do that, you're getting your sense of self out of the way. You're getting the habits out of the way. You're allowing the ego to die down a little bit. Because when you ask what the Buddha said, it becomes more like a non-self attitude. The Dhamma gets into the driver's seat instead of all of these other crazy things that tend to be in the driver's seat. And so respond rather than react. Allow the Dhamma to be the guide rather than the ego. Too often the ego is in charge. And the ego says that when you feel kind of the ill will or anger arising inside, you feel certain desires arising inside, these become very compelling forces inside of you that tell you to act. The ego grasps hold of these things and says, I have to act now, before it is too late. If I wait with getting angry, I might not get a chance to be angry, so I better do it now, or whatever it is. These are very powerful forces that drive us forward. But instead, stop. Don't allow the ego to be in charge. The ego is a very ugly kind of thing. Yeah, look at the ego, what it does to us. It's kind of ugly. Yeah, it is selfish. It has a narrow interests. It is about my world, doesn't take into account others. It is something that is not very nice at all. And so instead of allowing that ego, and also remember the ego is blind. The ego doesn't know what it does. From a Buddhist point of view, the ego is an illusion. How can an illusion have any wisdom? Have you thought about that before? How can an illusion have any wisdom? The ego is something that we add on top of reality, on top of events. Yeah, things come from a deeper place inside of us, and afterwards the ego comes and takes credit, for example. Yeah, I became a Buddhist. Why? Because I am smart. Yeah, because I am really good. Actually, no, that's not why you became a Buddhist at all. You became a Buddhist because of cause and conditions. That's why you became a Buddhist. Some of you would probably have a Buddhist background, and some of you don't, but whatever it is, it's causes and conditions. Yeah, I was very proud when I became a Buddhist monk. I thought I was really wise and smart. Yeah, that's why I became a Buddhist monk. But I realized soon enough that's not really why I became a Buddhist monk at all. I became a Buddhist monk because of probably habits. Yeah, habits from the past. I was a Buddhist monk maybe in the past life, or a Buddhist nun maybe in the past life. I don't know. Either one of those. I'm not sure. Probably some kind of monastic. And so now I'm just living on that habit from the past. So I made good habits in the past, and so those good habits carry on in this life. Yeah, being a monk is a good habit. Is that true? Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad you agree. Otherwise, I'm not sure. We get into trouble otherwise. So we allow the Dhamma to arise. We allow the Dhamma to come through instead of all the delusion and stupidity and the ego driving us. And the only way to allow that Dhamma to come through is to go more slowly, is to stop and ask, what is the Dhamma say in this particular situation? Yeah, then it becomes far better. So the present moment is like a crossing of two things. One is all the habits from the past, and the other one is the input in the present. Yeah, and when we put the right input in the present, and that input should be the Dhamma, then we can change the trajectory from the past. We don't have to follow that trajectory anymore. We can change our way, our path forward. And that's kind of the power of the Dhamma here. So this is another way of thinking of right view. Allow that right view. Most of you know a lot about the Dhamma already. You know what right view is. You know what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. And very often it's just a matter of allowing it to come up, remembering it before it is too late. It is not going to be perfect. There will still be some ego there. You can't bypass the ego completely, but you can reduce it to a very large extent. And that is really what we're trying to do here. Yeah, so this is another way of kind of imbuing your life with that right view. So that is general aspects of the path, the idea of morality and how to get started on the path, how right view enables that to happen, how we can live better as human beings in this world. But right view is also surprisingly very important for meditation practice. If you want your meditation to work, right view is one of the foundations for meditation. People think that meditation is sometimes they think it's some kind of self it's kind of enough in its own right. It doesn't really depend so much on other factors, but it depends enormously on other factors. And I think most of you would probably agree that meditation depends to a large extent on sila. We can kind of know that, but it also depends on right view. So how does that come to be the case? We've just been doing a meditation retreat, and as always, people find it often difficult, and I'm sure all of you know what that means, that your mind is kind of thinking about this and that, or it is tired and it's interested in all kind of things, except for the boring breath. That's the last thing it's interested in, People were saying this on the breath is so boring, I'd rather think about this or whatever. And that is a problem. And one of the ways of overcoming that problem is right view. It's known as Ujjukaditi. It is found in the Satipatthana Samyutta. Satipatthana practice is founded on Ujjukaditi according to these suttas. And what it means is that we need to have our priorities right. We need to know what to value. And your values and your priorities emerge out of right view. If you look at the world in the way that the Buddha has, it means you value things differently. Instead of valuing worldly things so much, you start valuing Dhamma things instead. You turn your mind towards something else. And that re-evaluation, which is kind of getting new values, reprioritizes what is important in your life. And then you think about things in a new way. So, quite commonly in the modern world, especially this may be true about secular Buddhism perhaps. I don't know if any one of you here considers yourself a secular Buddhist. I think all Buddhists are secular. That's my personal opinion, but anyway, whatever. So very often what people do is that they meditate to get a better life. I'm going to meditate so I kind of get on better with my husband and wife. I meditate so that I can kind of bring up my kids in a good way. My kids are so naughty, I need to calm down a bit with my kids. I meditate so I can get on with my colleagues. I meditate so that, for all of these reasons to make life better. And that is kind of okay. But if you really want to have success on the spiritual path, if you want the meditation really to bite, you have to turn things around. You have to make your work life or all of these other aspects of life into part of the spiritual path. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, changing your values. Instead of putting your ordinary life on top and making the spiritual path the support for your ordinary life, you put your spiritual life on top and make all the other aspects of life a support for that spiritual life. It's a revaluing of everything. And then when you sit down and you do your meditation practice, because you have the right value, because you know what comes on top, you're not going to think about the ordinary life so much. The worldly life is secondary. The spiritual life is number one. And part of that spiritual life right now, while I meditate, is to watch the breath. And so you watch the breath happily. You're not distracted by all of these other things because you understand that they are secondary. They're not really interesting. What do we do when we think about things in meditation? Very often we problem solve, or we fantasize about things. We think about the past. We try to think about the future. But remember that all of that fantasizing, all of that problem solving, all of the sorting out of things, that is why we are still here. This is what drives the kind of round of rebirth. This is what you never get out of that, because there is no end point with those things. You can solve problems till you are blue in the face. Please don't do that, because being blue in the face is not recommended. But you can do that, and there's always more problems behind. Behind solve one problem, there's another one waiting behind. And this is the way it's always been. And then eventually, while in the middle of solving problems, you die and you get reborn and you continue solving problems on the other end. This is kind of one way of thinking about samsaric existence. Eternal problem solving with no ultimate aim, no ultimate purpose. And so we recognize, actually, there's no way forward in this way. This is not how we achieve some kind of endpoint, some kind of real result. That real result, overcoming all problems in a more fundamental and final way, is done through the spiritual practice. That is where these things are finally solved. And so you put aside all of those things, thinking about the world, and you come to the spiritual practice instead. And suddenly the breath becomes far easier to see, because your values have been changed. And when your values are changed, your priorities are different. Now you prioritize the spiritual things over the worldly life. So this is an aspect of right view. Your priorities, your values. And it is something that I think we don't often think about, and we don't really reflect properly on, and we don't understand what is going on. So that is the power of right view. I haven't got many minutes left according to the schedule. I'm supposed to finish in 3 minutes. So let me give you another example of this, about the idea of right view, of worldly values over spiritual values. Yeah, one of the great teachings we find in the Mahamangala Sutta is the one about the Atta Loka Dhamma. Yeah, the 8 worldly things or 8 worldly qualities. And these are things like having a good reputation and bad reputation, about being blamed and being praised, finding happiness and suffering, gain and loss. These are the 8 Loka Dhammas. And these are the things around which the world revolves. Yeah, we revolve around those things, and those things revolve around us. When you think about your life, maybe, I don't know about your life, maybe most of you are probably practicing reasonably well, so maybe you don't have those defilements quite as strong, but life in general in the human realm revolves around gaining things, not losing things, around having a good reputation, not a bad reputation, about being praised, not being blamed. So much of our life is around these things. But actually, very often we waste our time with those kind of things so much because these things are out of control. This is another way of talking about right view, and how right view kind of gives us new priorities on the spiritual path. And so you start to understand that all the praise that we are seeking in the world, all the avoidance of blame, all those people who we are seeking praise from, they haven't got a clue. Right? They don't know anything anyway. What do they know about the spiritual life? Do they know what is truly praiseworthy? No. Do they know what is blameworthy? No. So why are we seeking the praise of so many kind of ordinary people in the world? Our boss, whoever it might be. What difference does it make? And so because of that, don't be concerned about the blame of ordinary people in the world. Be concerned whether you are blamed or praised by the Buddha. If the Buddha praises you, great, well done. You can kind of pat yourself on the back, okay, well done. And if the Buddha blames you, okay, maybe then you need to kind of have a check out, what's going on. But otherwise, all that ordinary blame and the praise in the world is kind of really useless. Don't allow that to kind of distract you, or to kind of encourage you to act in a certain way, or to be manipulated or whatever by these things. It's a beautiful thing to be free from that. If someone praises you, then you just look at their conduct and they say, oh yeah, I guess they're right about that praise. So that's kind of good, if they praise you in a good way. If someone blames you, okay, just look at your conduct. Most of the time, it's kind of irrelevant. You can just kind of push it to one side and forget about it. So these things in the world are so uncertain. They change so fast. Do you have a good reputation or bad reputation? Depends on the person you ask. With some people you may have a good reputation, with others you have a bad reputation. And then suddenly it changes around, and it's kind of the other way. And again, most people don't know how to ascertain whether someone deserves or a good or a bad reputation. And so this is kind of the worldly qualities in a kind of broader kind of view, And all of these worldly things start to become irrelevant in your life. And what that does, it creates this beautiful sense of independence from the world. No longer being concerned about what's happening in the world around you. Independence from all of this feeling of almost being manipulated by the world. Now you can be your own person. You look at your own integrity. You ask the Dhamma what is right and wrong. And then you act with integrity from that. That is what really matters, what is really important. And then you can become a far more successful spiritual practitioner, because now you're coming from something that is much more true, rather than coming from the superficial values of society. So I guess my message today is build up more right view. Don't underestimate right view. Remember that right view comes from hanging out, from associating with wise people. Hang out with more wise people. Avoid the people who are truly silly or foolish in life, because they will drag you down. And whether you want to or not, they will have an effect on you, because we are all conditioned by the circumstances around us. So this is the first verse of the Mahamangala Sutta, with a little bit kind of added to it, And so I offer that for the Dhamma talk today, and now we can open up for Q&A. Srijut, is that correct? So
Thank you, Ajahn, for the talk. Can you guys hear me okay? I hear myself.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to do some Q&A now. We'll alternate between the online audience, between the in-person and the online. So we'll start with the in-person. Is there any questions? There's one right down the back. There's one right down the back first.
Hello. Thank you, Ajahn Brahmali.
Yeah.
I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You've answered some of my question already in a range of really nuanced and sensitive and intelligent and inspiring ways. I think I'm probably going to ask this question because I want to make sure I am dealing with some of these issues in my life and not just assuming I get it.
Okay, all right.
So I try to put my spiritual life on top. Now, this year has been a bit different from me. Usually I have quite a very quiet and rather banal life. And I've been on the path for a while and I haven't made very great progress, but I've been trying. I'm a trier. Briefly, earlier this year I was the victim of violent crime. Over 4.5 weeks ago, my partner had a heart attack.
Wow, okay.
Now he's going to be having open heart surgery in a few weeks. About a week to 10 days after that, one of my very closest friends and her husband was in a terrible car accident and subsequently they'd both died. And even my darling dog, whom we called Buddha, and I've checked it with Buddha, it's okay to call my dog Buddha.
Okay.
Even he in the middle of the night had a seizure recently.
Yeah.
So I'm an older person and I understand from some schools of Buddhism the idea is that at a certain point your karma can rev up. You can have some more crises happening.
Yeah.
And recently I listened to a talk by Ajahn Brahm and he talked about bad things happening to people and that can be a good thing. So I'm trying to find what I can learn as part of my examined life. And maybe it's just a recap on everything you just said, but I don't want to assume I get it because I'm finding it quite a challenge.
Yeah.
So if you could possibly just address and for the sake of everyone, what do people do when things stacking up badly? And how do they make sure that they're as good as they can be as a Buddhist and they learn from this?
Yeah,
so
good.
That's a convoluted question.
No, not convoluted at all. That's a very, very practical question and very, very useful one. So thank you for that. And thank you for, you've gone through a really hard time. So I feel, sorry to hear about all of that. But yes, of course, it's all about how we deal with these things. That makes all the difference. And a lot of people will end up wallowing in the suffering and just feel sorry for themselves and end up doing all kind of crazy things as a result of so much suffering. So well done for kind of being here and for still standing up. That's marvelous. So the first thing is to know that to learning something about self-compassion. Have compassion for yourself. And this is what life is like. Sometimes we're not kind enough to ourselves, don't have enough compassion for ourselves. But it's very beautiful to have self-compassion because it is an acceptance of the suffering of being a human being. Being a human is difficult. Everyone has more suffering than they want. And then instead of blaming yourself for thinking that it is your fault, which is all kind of really foolish way of dealing with it, it is never our fault. Even if we are complicit in doing stupid things, it is still not our fault. That's kind of the beautiful thing about the Buddhist path. We are conditioned. So once you start to see that, you can have compassion for yourself because it's like you are a victim. This is what life is like. We are all victims. That's kind of the bottom line. We are the victim of cause and conditions that are far greater than ourselves. And so it's not like there's no perpetrator. We're victims without perpetrators, which is kind of one of the strange things in the world. And then you can have compassion for yourself. And when you have compassion for yourself, it opens up the possibility of having compassion for others too. Because then you see this is the human condition. It is not specific to anyone. This is what everyone is like. So use this as an opportunity to understand more deeply the nature of suffering, the nature of life. And nothing has really gone wrong in your life. What has happened is just what sometimes we can expect. You won't have this all the time, obviously, but sometimes this happens in life. So that is the first one. The second thing is this is also not only a source for compassion, but also a source for growing your own wisdom. Understanding the nature of dukkha also leads to wisdom. It leads you to an understanding that, okay, so if this is what life is like, I better practice the spiritual path. You realize how vulnerable you are to external shocks. All these are external shocks you're talking about, things you can't control. Okay, so what can you control? Well, what I can control is my own spiritual path. I can control whether I act with kindness and compassion or whether with harshness and anger. I can control whether I sit down in meditation, find peace and joy within, or I live in the world and allow the world to affect me in this way. And so you find the refuge inside of yourself. This is one of those beautiful teachings of the Buddha when he came close to his final passing away. The idea of finding the island, the refuge inside of yourself, be your island unto yourself. That's what you understand is really the only way out of this, because the nature of the external world is what you're saying, so you have to go within instead. So use it to create compassion and wisdom in your life in this way, and then I'm pretty sure you will come out to the other end as a wiser and better person as a consequence.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. We'll go to some of the online questions, alternating, but there are a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to ask the one that's sort of most related to the talk you just gave, to start with. What if family members are negative fools? We cannot dissociate from them, as in the Mangala Sutta. What is the right view in this situation?
Yeah, it's not what if, guaranteed that there are family members who are fools. Yeah, that's kind of, that's just par for the course. Yeah. So, so what you have to do is you have to, decide how much time you want to spend with your family members. You have to decide, very often it's not. People often think they have to spend a lot of time with family members, the filial duties and these kind of things, filial piety or whatever. But it's more about quality time. Yeah. So if you feel that there are certain family members who are particularly foolish, then reduce a little bit your contact time with those people, and that's perfectly okay. We don't have any absolute duty with family members. Arguably you could say that I am a bad son because my mother is living by herself in Norway, how many kilometers away, and I see her kind of once a year in person. But the quality time is much more. The quality of the time we spend together is far greater than what it used to be. It is not just about hanging out with each other and kind of having arguments or whatever. It's about how we interact. Yeah, that's far more important. And if there are foolish family members, then by staying a little bit away from them, and kind of having a bit of distance from them, we have more ability to interact with them in non-foolish ways. Foolish people become more foolish the more time we spend with them usually, and so kind of keep a little bit of distance. So that's what I would recommend. Otherwise, yes, we have to bear up with the fools in our life, and sometimes you just have to make the most of it and make the best of a difficult situation.
Thank you for an excellent talk. I actually have so many questions, so I'm going to ask none of them. And instead,
okay.
I just wanted to say what a pleasure it is to see the nuns here today, and that I've been coming for about 1.5 years to the BSV. Similarly to the woman who spoke before and asked the question, went through huge amounts of losses in a very short time and decided it was time to come back to the Dharma in a more serious way. And in that 1.5 years, it's the first time I've seen the nuns here. And I think the right view would be to bring the nuns more often. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Good. I think that's true everywhere. So we in the end, we have to kind of find out what works, and we have to kind of. So you're very welcome to invite the nuns yourself personally, and then maybe there's more chance they will come here. So that's what I would recommend. Yeah. So great. Okay. So
Ajahn.
Yeah.
I'm here.
There you are.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Thank you so much for that very inspiring Dhamma talk.
Yeah.
When you're talking about having reducing the ego.
Yeah.
Because what after coming to the Dhamma path, I can see like a greater reduction of the ego, but also I kind of sometimes struggle, where do I set the boundary? Because what I felt, it's like, letting go the ego can also make you a doormat. So you were talking in your first session also about, okay, sometimes these forces drive us as a way to protect. It is ego, but there's also a need to be a boundary. So how do you, I'm kind of at this kind of a confusion, where do I set the boundary? Letting go the ego, but where I don't want to be a doormat.
Yeah. So there's a distinction between letting go of the ego, not coming from ego, and not being assertive. You can still be assertive. You can still have opinions. And you can still set boundaries that accord with the Dhamma, but they don't accord with just ego. And so you need to know that for you to be able to function as a human being, you have to look after yourself first of all. You have to make sure that your spiritual qualities are looked after. Because if you don't grow and you don't have that integrity, you can't help anyone anyway, right? So set boundaries from a Dhamma perspective. What do I need to function? What is necessary in my life? And if certain people are very foolish, I guess toxic is the modern word that people use. Certain people are a bit toxic, then stay away. I don't like that idea of toxic. It's a bit harsh, isn't it? People are toxic. It sounds a bit, I don't know. I think being silly is a better word than toxic, I reckon. So if people are a bit silly, then you need to, for your own safety, for your own growth, knowing your own vulnerability. We are far more vulnerable than we think we are. We think that we are strong. We think that we can withstand the harsh conditions around us, but actually we can't. Instead, we are subject to those conditions, and we will drown unless we kind of make clear boundaries. So just try to use wisdom instead of ego. I can see the top of your head over there. No, that's okay. So so don't allow yourself to be a doormat. Have clear principles. If I look at someone, Ajahn Brahm, I can tell you he's the last person I would call a doormat. But Ajahn Brahm has very little ego. I sit next to him. I know what it feels like to be around Ajahn Brahm. There's very, very little ego there. I don't know if there's any ego at all, to be honest with you, when I'm with him. And yet, he is no doormat. He is very he knows what needs to be done. But he does everything in a nice, kind, and compassionate way. And that is the most important thing. Yeah. Hello.
Ajahn, I've got a question on remorse. Now, in terms of the second factor of enlightenment, to use investigation to look into the issue, how should one do that?
About remorse, is that what you said? Remorse. Okay, so how to investigate to overcome remorse? So the second factor of awakening is the Dhammavicaya Sambojjhanga, the factor of enlightenment of investigation of qualities. And quite rightly, it is about understanding the qualities that are blameworthy, the qualities that are blameless, and then kind of navigating towards the blameless qualities away from the blameworthy ones. And so with remorse, one of the most powerful ways of overcoming remorse, again, is this idea that we are not ultimately responsible for what we do. There are greater forces that kind of force us down a certain way and make us do certain things. That was what what I mentioned before, that I became a Buddhist monk. I was very proud of that initially. I thought it must be because I'm really wise and smart, But then I thought maybe there's a bit too much ego in this. There's an issue here with this way of thinking about it. And the more I thought about it, and the more I looked back, I could see it instead of being a choice that I made, it was more like railroad tracks that had already been laid, and I was just kind of going along those railroad tracks because it's very hard to jump the tracks. Once you're on the tracks, well, basically going in one direction. And we are all like that. We're going a bit on railroad tracks. Those railroad tracks are the habits and the conditioning we bring with us from the past. And so if you have done some mistakes in your life, remember that actually, ultimately, it is not your responsibility. It's the responsibility of all those causes and conditions that made you do those things. You had no choice really at the end of the day. I don't know, when I look at some of the mistakes I have done in my life, it feels a bit like I almost had to do them. Things were conspiring against me. I was a victim of cause and conditions. I wasn't really in charge. I didn't know what I was doing. I was blind. There was no Dhamma in my life, or whatever. There was all these things just coming together. And so that emerges out of the idea of non-self. There is no inherent essence whereby you can stand your ground against these cause and conditions and say, stop. That essence doesn't exist. There's only, if we are lucky, we have some Dhamma qualities and they will say stop, but we are not saying stop. And if those Dhamma qualities aren't there, we will make mistakes. So be really kind to yourself, See yourself as a kind of victim rather than as a perpetrator. And the moment you move from perpetrator to victim, and we are all victims, then you can forgive yourself. You can say, I forgive myself. Then you can have compassion for yourself because you understand that we are all still trapped by those habits in the past in a certain way. And you start to have compassion for yourself for making those mistakes. And that is extra powerful. You're moving from remorse to compassion. And this is kind of a very beautiful movement when you can see that in the right way. And so that is what I would recommend to using. And this is, in a sense, using, you can call it Dhammavicca if you like. I think Dhammavicca is a little bit different, but this is not the time to explain exactly what that means. But yes, that makes sense? Are you, or does it not make? Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad you can make some sense of that. Great. So yes, Sri Juta.
We may take one more
Yeah.
online question, but we have
Please,
just been given a notification that there is a car blocking, but we haven't got the registration. A car blocking a driveway, but we haven't got the registration yet. Just waiting for that to come through. But Langdon, if you can just do the online question first.
All right, thank you, Ajahn. If we are to hang out with the wise, then are you saying we recognize wisdom in a person who is imbued with the virtue of humility?
Yes, that is one way of doing that. Humility is certainly a virtue, and that is one way of thinking about the wise. But it's more than just humility. Sometimes we can misunderstand. Some people can seem humble. You have to look at the person over a long period of time and evaluate the overall character of the person over a long period of time, and then you can have some idea of whether they are wise or not. It takes time to investigate these things. You have to have wisdom yourself, to be able to see whether someone else is wise. So this is kind of the hard part. If you don't have any wisdom yourself, you can't see it. You have to be alert and you have to be attentive. All of these qualities are coming straight from the suttas, by the way. I'm not just making it up on the spot. All this is from the suttas. And then you can evaluate someone else's wisdom, someone else's character by slowly, carefully looking at this. And so yes, humility is a part of that. Someone who has a lot of ego, a lot of conceit, pride and arrogance are unlikely to be a very wise person. But it's not absolute. Sometimes qualities are very mixed up. People can have like a variety of qualities, some negative and some good. So it can be a little bit hard to sometimes get fully apart. So make an overall assessment of the character is often the way to go, I think.
Okay, that's it. And I've been notified the car has moved. So
Good.
It's all
Excellent.
good. Thank you. Sorry for the disruption. Thank you, Ajahn, for today's Dhamma talk. I've got a couple of announcements, not too many. So if you could just bear with me. So a reminder to everyone that our AGM is on next Sunday, the 19th of April at 2 p.m. We encourage members to register if you're planning to attend, either in person or online. We have added a link in the newsletter this week. It takes about 2 minutes, and we'd be very grateful if you do, because it just takes the load off us in terms of preparation for that. For those who register, you'll be able to skip the queue and just use the express lane to grab your pre-prepared AGM pack and take a seat. To register, just go to bsv.net.au/AGM. Registrations close 5 p.m. Thursday, the 16th. Okay, so today we've had lots of Sangha here, and part of the reason for that's it's for you as well, Ajahn, but, but we've also got the Sinhala, Tamil and Thai New Year celebration. Please join us today for the New Year celebrations here. So at 11 a.m, the Sangha will light a traditional oil lamp, followed by the Pinnapada and the offering of the lunch dana. The communal lunch will be at 11:30 a.m. with some special New Year delicacies to enjoy. After lunch at 12:20 to 1 p.m, everyone is invited to join the New Year activities symbolising purification, respect and renewal. Okay, so please join us for that. The online Sutta discussion, the next one is facilitated by Ajahn Sangamiji and A.S. Santa. The next session will be on Saturday, the 11th of April, and session commences at 7 p.m. Melbourne time. There is a link in the newsletter and to the discussion, or alternatively, you can check out the BSV Discord channel for more details on that. Now, our Vesak event, the next big event, will be the Vesak. We've been speaking about that over the last couple of weeks. We'll be celebrating that this year at Box Hill Town Hall on this Saturday, the 2nd of May, between 3 and 7 p.m. We're expecting representation from all parts of the BSV community. It'll be much more than the usual format when Ajahn Brahm comes, which is a public talk. The team is putting together some promotional material for that. We're a bit behind on that, but you should start to see that this week. And we decided last week that we'll need to book for that event because we've got some capacity within the hall. We just need to make sure we don't go over that. The Ajahn Brahm retreat scheduled between 3rd and 9th of May at Newbury, that's fully booked, but you can join the wait list. This week's teaching program, so Monday night, Ajahn Nisarana, you're doing the meditation, thank you for that. And Tuesday night, as usual, we've got our layperson doing the meditation. And then next week's teaching program, we've got Ajahn Aranavihari doing the Sunday Dhamma talk and their Monday guided meditation as well. He's back from Sri Lanka. Now, the Sangha, does this, Ajahn Nisarana, you've got transport back to, or you need transport, the nuns?
I think the nuns were okay.
Okay, so if anyone would like to offer the nuns a lift back to Newbury, then please see them during. Okay, so we have one. You just have that's all sorted. All right, great. Thank you very much. No need to say any more.
And if I can get a lift on Tuesday morning at 8:30.
Okay, so Ajahn Nisarana leads a lift back to Newbury on Tuesday morning at 8:30, leaving here at 8:30. Okay. So thank you. You can speak to Ajahn during the Pinnapada or come and see me. Okay, that's it for announcements. Thank you so much, Ajahn, for coming in and offering us this talk.
Yeah,
deeply
nice
appreciate it.
Wonderful to be here, yeah.
Look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank
Great,
you.
sadhu.
Okay, and I'll let you close things off.
Yeah. So, how do we close things off? Arahang Sama, is that nice? Okay. Yeah. Don't usually do it this time. Let's just chant the Arahang together. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami.
Okay, we're running a little bit behind. If we could wait, if everyone could remain seated and we'll allow the Sangha to leave before we leave the room. Thank you.